Private David Thompson and his unit stood at the edge of the Afghan desert, staring out at the seemingly endless expanse of sand and rock before them. They had only been deployed for a few weeks, but already they were longing for the familiarity and comfort of home. As they trudged through the desert, David's thoughts turned to the mission at hand. His unit had been tasked with patrolling the remote lawless regions of the country, searching for any signs of Taliban activity. It was a dangerous and thankless job, but someone had to do it. Suddenly, David's radio crackled to life. "Private Thompson, come in, over." David grabbed the radio and pressed it to his ear. "This is Thompson. What's up, sir?" "We've just received a report of an isolated town in the area," the voice on the other end replied. "It's not on any of our maps, and there have been some odd reports coming in from the locals. We want you and your unit to check it out and report back with whatever you find." David's heart raced with excitement. This was exactly the kind of adventure he had signed up for. He couldn't wait to explore this mysterious place and see what secrets it held. With renewed energy, David and his unit set off across the desert, following the coordinates that had been given to them. As they drew closer to the town, they could see the outlines of buildings emerging from the haze. They were in various states of disrepair, some barely standing, others reduced to rubble. David and his unit approached the town cautiously, their rifles at the ready. They had no idea what kind of dangers might be lurking in the shadows. As they stepped inside the first building, they were immediately struck by how quiet it was. The only sound was the crunch of their boots on the ground. They made their way through the abandoned streets, taking in the eerie scene around them. The town was completely deserted, and there was no sign of any human habitation. It was as if everyone had just vanished into thin air. As they explored deeper into the town, David had the distinct impression that they were being watched, but whenever he turned to look, there was nothing there. It was as if the town itself was alive, and it didn't want them there. Despite his mounting unease, David refused to let it get the better of him. He was a soldier after all, and he had a job to do. He continued his search, determined to uncover the truth about this strange place. As the sun began to set, David and his unit made their way back to their base, their minds racing with all that they had seen. As soon as they arrived, they reported their findings to their superiors. They listened intently, their expressions growing more and more grave as they spoke. It wasn't long before the news of the ghost town spread like wildfire through the ranks. The soldiers in David's unit, as well as others who had explored the town after them, began to report strange occurrences and bizarre illnesses. In the end, it was decided that the town was too dangerous to risk further exploration. It was sealed off and marked as off-limits, a cautionary tale for all those who ventured too far into the Afghan wilderness. As for David and his unit, they couldn't shake the feeling that they had barely scratched the surface of the mystery of the abandoned town. They knew that they would never forget the strange and unsettling experiences they had encountered there. And when they returned home to the United States, each one of them was plagued with nightmares of the town. They couldn't shake the feeling that something supernatural had been watching them, and they were left wondering if they would ever truly be able to escape its grasp. Despite their best efforts, the memory of the town stayed with them, haunting them long after they had left Afghanistan. Some of the soldiers even started to believe that the town was cursed, and that anyone who entered it would be doomed to suffer its horrors for the rest of their lives. David tried his best to put the experience behind him, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was still lurking in the shadows, waiting for him to let his guard down. He knew that he would never be able to truly escape the horror he felt whenever he closed his eyes. David believed he would live the rest of his days in fear of what might happen if he ever ventured too far from the safety of home. As the years went by, David's obsession with the strange town in Afghanistan only grew. He spent countless hours poring over maps and records, trying to find any information that might help him understand what had happened there. But no matter how hard he looked, he couldn't find a single mention of the place. It was as if it had simply ceased to exist. Finally, David couldn't take it anymore. He knew that the only way he would ever be able to stop the nightmares was to go back there and find out what had happened. He needed to know why the town was abandoned and why it wasn't on any maps. So, with a sense of determination, David packed his bags and set off for Afghanistan once again. He knew that it would be a dangerous journey, but he was willing to risk it all to find the answers he was seeking. After he landed in Kabul, he contacted a few of his old connections to help him find transportation to the abandoned town. Since the US Army had left the country, he knew it would be difficult, but with a few bribes, he was able to make his way to the place that haunted his nightmares. He was dropped off in an old beat-up Toyota pickup by a man he had known in his previous life as a soldier. However, the man did not stick around, but promised to return the following morning. As David walked through the deserted streets of the ghost town, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. He could sense a presence lurking in the shadows, waiting for him to let his guard down. It was the same feeling he had been experiencing for years, but much more intense. However, he refused to be intimidated. He was determined to get to the bottom of this mystery, no matter what it took. David searched high and low for any clues that might help him understand what had happened. And finally, after hours of searching, he stumbled upon a hidden cellar beneath one of the abandoned buildings. Inside, he found a series of old yellow documents that told the shocking story of what had befallen the town. According to the documents, the town had been built on top of a rich vein of minerals, and for years, the local mine had provided a steady income for the community. But one day, something had gone wrong. There had been a cave-in, and when the rescue team had arrived, they had found something strange and unsettling in the depths of the mine. No one knew exactly what it was, but whatever it was, it had terrified the rescue team and driven them mad with fear. They had fled the mine, leaving behind their comrades and the secret of what they had found. As David read the documents, he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Could it be that the ghost town was haunted by something unworldly, something that had driven the entire community to flee in terror? Despite his mounting unease, David refused to let it get the better of him. He knew that he had to find a way to confront the horrors of the past and lay the ghosts of the abandoned town to rest. And so, with a sense of determination, David gathered his courage and set off into the depths of the mine, determined to uncover the truth and put an end to the nightmares that had plagued him for so long. David stepped cautiously into the mine, his flashlight casting a narrow beam of light through the darkness. He could hear his own breathing echoing off the walls, and once again he couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching him. As he descended deeper into the mine, he couldn't help but wonder what had driven the people of the ghost town to flee in terror. Was it something supernatural, or was there a more mundane explanation for their fear? As he rounded a corner, David suddenly stopped in his tracks. There, in the beam of his flashlight, he saw something that made his blood run cold. It was a skeleton, lying twisted and broken on the ground. And next to it was a strange glowing stone that seemed to pulsate with an otherworldly energy. David knew immediately that this was the source of the town's troubles. He could feel the strange energy emanating from the stone, and he knew that it was responsible for the horrors that had befallen the town. Despite his fear, he knew that he had to destroy the stone. He couldn't let it continue to haunt the town and drive people mad with fear. With a sense of determination, he reached out and grabbed the stone, ready to rid the world of its malevolent influence. As soon as his fingers touched the stone, David felt a surge of energy coursing through his body. He was momentarily blinded by a bright flash of light, and when he opened his eyes, he found himself standing outside the mine, the stone nowhere to be found. David couldn't believe what had happened. Had he really managed to destroy the stone and banish the ghosts of the abandoned town? He wasn't sure, but he felt a sense of release, as if the weight of the town's dark history had been lifted from his shoulders. Despite the uncertainty of his mission, David felt a sense of peace as he walked through the deserted streets. He stayed there overnight and closed his eyes, kept warm in his sleeping bag. He slept so deeply that the honk of the old Toyota pickup the following morning could not wake him. He was finally jostled awake by the Afghan man. David opened his eyes with a grin on his face. It was as if he had made up for years of lost sleep. With a sense of closure, David packed his bags and prepared to leave Afghanistan behind. As he boarded the plane back home, he couldn't help but wonder if he would ever see the ghost town again. But as he looked out at the rolling mountains below, he knew that he would always carry the memory of Afghanistan with him wherever he went. And as he settled back in his seat, he closed his eyes and let out a deep sigh of relief, knowing that he had finally found the peace he had been seeking. Upon arriving home, David was exhausted from the lengthy flight and went straight to bed and passed out. After a few hours, he woke up to find that the sun had set and his room dark. He leaned to his left and turned on the lamp on his nightstand. In that instant he felt a pain in his left hand. He turned to look at it and saw blood dripping from his clenched fist. He gradually opened his hand and was horrified to see the green stone emitting a pulsing glow. He had been holding it this entire time, from the abandoned town, onto the plane, and even while he slept in his bed. His hand ached in pain. It wasn't just from holding the stone tightly in his hand. Whatever the stone was, it had lodged a part of itself inside of him. At that realization, an image appeared in his mind of what was to come. He ran to his bedroom window and opened it quickly. He peered outside from his second-story bedroom to see hundreds of people from his town walking from all directions to his home. It scared him at first, but he quickly felt something else. It was as if he was finally set free. He had brought freedom with him from Afghanistan. It was in the form of a stone, now set in blood, still in his hand.